Namaskar. In this video I am going to talk about karma, the theory of cause and effect applied to human mind and human life, to the events of our life, why things are happening to us. There are questions that really are very interesting for every human being. We would like to see our future, what is going to happen. We would like to know, is there really such a thing as a free will? Are there events in our lives that are preordained and cannot be changed? I'm going to talk about that, and also I'm going to talk about connection between past, present and future, and how it affects our spiritual growth and development. I will try to explain in a very simple way. So what is karma? Karma has become a household word now. Everyone knows karma. In the computer games even there is karma. Everywhere, everyone has heard this word at least several times in our lives. The basic idea is that you have done something, you have to reap the consequences of your actions. In Bible, Jesus Christ says, as you sow, so you reap. You have created an action, that action will have consequences. So that is the basic idea of karma. Actually, this word is not very exact word. If you talk about this cause and effect theory, there is not only karma, there is also samskara. So normally when people say, oh, I have a good karma, or I have a bad karma, something happened, oh, bad karma, is not precisely correct. It would be better to say, oh, it is good samskara or bad samskara. Samskara, this word samskara signifies reaction to the action, and the word karma signifies the action itself. So there is the karma and samskara are intertwined. I do some karma, I create some samskara. That samskara in the future will motivate me to do some karma, and that karma will create another samskara. So this is the flow of action and reaction, action and reaction. So I'm going to talk about it. From the lessons of physics, we know that to every force in the universe there is an opposite and equal reaction. For example, if on the table there is a weight, some piece of iron is there, so that piece of iron pushes the table down. The gravitation force pulls the iron, and the iron presses the table. At the same time, the table also presses the iron. No, not only the table will feel, but also the iron will feel. For example, if you push, if you do like this against the floor, not only the floor will feel hurt, but also your elbow will feel hurt. So that's the force goes in two directions. So the basic idea is that it is also applied in physics. It is applied to the physical objects, but tantra, the spirituality, it goes one step. Yoga, it goes one step further, and it says that not only to the physical objects, but also to the mind. If I do something, the mind is the originator of the action. And then my mind creates the movement in the world. What is action? Action is actually moving one object from point A to the point B. So that movement from the action, from the objects, the change in the spatial circumstances. I moved the objects from here to there. So that change of the space factor is the action. And then that action originates Where? Within the mind. The pen is writing. No, actually not pen is writing. The hand is writing. No, not hand. Not hand is writing. The mind is writing. The action originates within the mind. So the idea of yoga is that since the mind is the progenitor of the action, so the mind will also reap the reaction of that action. So that pressure that mind has created on the external reality, on the physical reality, that pressure will have to be returned, and the mind will also feel the pressure. So just to put it very simply, when I do something, I change something in the external world, and also I change something within myself. Similarly, when I change something within myself, I change something in the external world. So this is the basic idea. This is the basic idea of karma. I already have spoken about the structure of the mind. The video is called "The Mysteries of the Mind Revealed." It's about the subjective portion of the mind and objective portion of the mind. So which portion of the mind is actually doing the action? It is called aham tattva, or the doer portion of the mind. Also people call it as ego. Ego is producing an action. There is this misconception regarding the ego. People, oh, you have a big ego. It means something bad, you are a bad person. You have a big ego. Actually, it's not bad to have a big ego. It means I have a large this doership within myself. It means I have intense personality. I can do things. To do things, you must have a big ego. The small ego cannot move things around, but bigger ego can move things around. That's the idea. But when people say you have a big ego, it means, oh, you are very proud, you have conceit, you are egoistic. This is what they mean by that. But in a philosophical sense, ego is that portion of the mind, the doership portion of the mind. So that doership that I do, it produces the action, and it will also reap the consequences of one's action. Every action produces samskara. There is a subjective portion of the mind, then there is objective portion of the mind. 5 layers, remember? Imagine the objective portion of the mind just to be like a football. And then to do something, you have to first change that objective portion of the mind. For example, you are sitting, and then you need to go and drink a glass of water. So something has to happen to you. Otherwise, you are not going to go. So first there has to be, the desire has to awaken in the mind. So already the state of mind changes. And then there is this feeling, determination has to occur in the mind. First is the desire, second goes the visualization, third goes determination, and the fourth is the actual action. So 3 of those stages of action are beneath the surface. Nobody sees what happens within. And only the last portion of the action is visible to others. I desire something, this is the first stage of the action. Already the mind is changing. Already there is an alteration within the mind. In the objective portion of the mind, already there is movement. Even there is no external movement, already in the mind there is movement. And there will be consequences of that also. Already you are changing the mind, you are reshaping the mind. Then I visualize. Oh, I need to, sometimes people in depression, for example. Oh, I would like to have some glass of water. And then there is visualization. I need to stand up and I need to go down on the first floor and I need to take the glass and then fill it with water and then I can drink. Oh, it's okay. I don't need water. It's okay. It's like in this Anahata chakra, there is this ability to take the determination here. It's called Chestavritti. I desire, I visualize, and then I make the inner effort. I prepare my mind to express an action. And then finally I stand up and go. So if on any of that stages there will be some deficiency, the action will not be fulfilled. Many people, they have weak heart. And because of that weak heart, that metaphorically speaking, they have weak Anahata chakra. They are not able, they have good dreams, they have good desires, they visualize properly, but they don't have strength of the heart to materialize the action. So on each of these stages, there are changes happening within the mind. And I will just give you the picture. For example, there is a football here. So this football has to come into a certain state and then the external action is possible. So after the action is done, the football is still in that state. And there is a sort of like you press, that's your ego, your Aham Tattva, and this is your objective mind. And then you are pressing, you are changing your mind with your force of the subjective portion of the mind, of your doership, your ability to do things, your actional faculty. You are pressing the mind with that, and you are transforming the mind. You are distorting the mind. And then after the action is done, there will be distortion still there in your mind. It's just like cavity there. And the nature of the mind, just like if you stop pressing the football, what will happen to the football? It will come back to the original shape. So similarly, the mind is always trying to achieve the balanced state. But to achieve that balanced state, the pressure has to be given in the opposite direction. So for me, to acquire balance, for example, and the action is always colored with something. I can do the action, such action that will give pleasure to others. It's called Shukla karma, the white karma. Or there is Krishna karma, the black karma. I can make an action which gives the pain to others. So according to the nature of my action, I am working within the mind actually. Within my mind, and my mind exists in the cosmic mind, in the macrocosm. So according to those, not only the action, not only this movement matters, but also the result, the feeling, the pain and pleasure which involved in that action, they also matter. So for me to get rid of certain distortion that I have created, I have to experience similar action towards me. If I have given out the pain, I have to receive the pain, and then the mind will acquire the balance. This is called reaping of the consequences of one's actions. My grandmother, she was a Christian, and she used to show me the books, you know, it's just like from straight from the Middle Ages, about heaven and hell. And she was telling me, you should not swear, should not steal, should not hurt, should not inflict any harm on others. And I was asking, I was curious boy, I was asking, but why, grandmother? Why not? Why cannot I swear? She said, then then she would open the book, and it's like, you know, Dante Alighieri, all different layers of the hell, and there is a paradise, there is a hell, and then there are many different kind of tortures there. So I was thinking, and she was saying, you are going to go there, and I was thinking, oof, that is not desirable. I don't like to go there. And I say, but who is going to decide? She said, oh, there is God and there are angels, and every time you do something bad, the different demons, they write in the book. And then you do something good, then the angels, they write also in the book. So there will be two books. And then when there will be judgment day, one book will be placed on one part of the scale and another one and another one. And, yeah. And there will be weight. If your good is more than your bad, then you are going to go to the paradise. And if your bad is more, then you're going to go to hell. And I was thinking, then I took that idea, but then later my parents actually, they were atheists, and they were like, yeah, they were non-believers. So they dissuaded me. They were trying to educate me in a rational way. So they were saying, how can you imagine this thing to happen? Then I thought, okay, it must be nonsense, some outdated ideas. But then later on I understood that this book exists, actually. But that book is not somewhere, not angels, not demons that are writing that book. This book is your own mind. You are writing with every action in your own mind. And you are bringing yourself into the hell or into the heaven. The person whose actions are good, he exists as if he exists. He walks on the earth, but his state of the mind is just like he's in heaven. And the person whose actions are painful, harmful to others, that person slowly descends into such vibration, into such feeling, that he becomes very unhappy, he becomes very restless. This restlessness and peacefulness are the things that signifies where you are. If you are very restless, that is the crude state of the mind. And if you are peaceful, you are in heaven and you feel joyful. So we write that book, and we write with our actions, in our own mind. So every letter that you write has to be later on expressed. Every action you do, you have to reap the consequences of that action. As you sow, so you reap. If the seeds are sweet, there will be nice corn and nice cucumbers and nice tomatoes, and when you are going to eat, you are going to enjoy them. And if the seeds are very bitter, then the fruits also is going to be very bitter. And then also you have to understand that one seed of grain can become a plant of wheat, and it becomes 12 grains, and then it will become 124 grains, and so on and so on and so on. Geometrical progression, it can become the entire field of grain. So one action may result in many, many more actions, and those actions, they will create more and more reactions in the mind. So it is very interesting, it is almost impossible to resolve all the consequences of the actions that we have done in the past. Okay, so I think by now we are clear what is karma, what is samskara, how the samskara is created. Samskara, every time I act, I deform my mind, because action is the deformation in the mind. And that action leaves the mark behind. It leaves like in the seed form there is a reaction to that action. So every action must have reaction. Then what is the conclusion? What is our understanding from that? One understanding could be that I should do good actions and I should not do bad actions, just like my grandmother used to teach. Because if I'm doing good actions, I'm going to enjoy the results of those good actions. Yeah, to some extent, it is like that. It is better. But from the spiritual viewpoint, it is not good enough. It is not good enough. For example, I have given a beautiful concert. Let's say I'm a piano player. And then after I have done my thing, the spectators, they have given me a big applause, and I bow down and then I go. But they're still applauding. What I have to do? I have to come back to the stage and again have to bow down. Enjoy, no? There is a glory, there is a recognition, there is fame and everything. So I enjoy myself again, I bow down, and then again they're applauding. But I already feel hungry, I want to go home and eat nice vegetables there. I want to be there in the sweetness of my house, enjoy the food and calm. But still they are applauding. Again I come out and again I bow down. So this is something which is called good samskara, or you can say good karma. You have done something good in the past. You cannot get rid of the reactions to the past. You have to reap those. If you have done something good, you have to enjoy. But what's wrong with the enjoyment? There is nothing wrong. But when you become really hungry for something that really your soul wants, then there is something wrong. For example, perhaps you like very much the oatmeal. You make the porridge, and for some reason you really enjoy it. And you put some raisins, and you put some honey, and you put some butter, and you put some nuts, and it's very nice. And you have made 10 buckets, maybe 100 liters of that porridge. And you keep it in the fridge. But when you open the fridge, suddenly you saw there is a cake there. And you want to eat the cake. You are a little bit bored now with the porridge. You eat all the time the porridge. But now you saw the cake, you want to eat the cake. So you go with your hand, there are some nuts there, and you take that one nut from the cake and you eat. And then there is mother. It's like, I remember this in my childhood. It was still Soviet Union time, and the cake was only once in a year, like for the birthday. So 2 days in advance the cake already there. And then the children, they go around, they see, oh, there is a cake, and they want to pick a little bit, little by little. So you pick one nut and you eat, and then the mother appears and say, hey, don't touch the cake. So you want to eat the cake, you go there for the cake, and then the mother appears and say, hey, first you have to finish the porridge. After you have finished the porridge, then you're allowed to eat the cake. So the mother is the force of nature. It is the law of karma. And the cake is the divine bliss. Supreme Consciousness. And the porridge. Porridge is your samskara. The consequences of good actions that you have done in the past. So you have to enjoy the 10 buckets of porridge before you can eat the cake. But before you saw the cake, it was okay. The porridge was fine. I am enjoying my life. But when my thirst has awakened for something more noble, something more delightful, blissful, I want that. But I have to eat that. One time I was meditating and I started to go into concentration. And I was really getting concentrated. But then the thought of breakfast started to come into my mind. You have to go already eat. It's enough. Meditation is enough. And there was this contradiction in me. I'm really interested to get the spiritual experience, but at the same time, I want to eat my bananas. So this thought of eating the bananas comes due to good karma. I'm going to enjoy those bananas, and that enjoyment is due to good karma. But then, because of those bananas, I cannot enjoy the Supreme Consciousness. So I focus my mind in the Supreme, but then there are other desires, other distractions, pulling my mind somewhere. And why they arise in the mind? Why the thought is arising in the mind? Every thought has the roots, and those roots are your actions. You have done certain actions in the past, so today you have to reap the consequences. They can be pleasurable consequences. They can be painful consequences, but you must reap those consequences. With pleasure, we seek the pleasure. It is our fundamental property to seek the pleasure. It is natural for us. We like to enjoy things. And normally we don't like to experience pain. It is not. Some people like, but then they are receiving pleasure also in a distorted way. So from pain we try to avoid. We always try to avoid the pain. That's the natural mechanism within us which is leading us to the supreme bliss. We avoid the suffering. We try to escape the suffering and we try to follow the pleasure, and then finally we want to achieve the highest pleasure there is, that is the cosmic bliss. So, how I'm going to reap? I understand that in my past I have done some good actions. So today I am enjoying good life. I have enough money. I have enough respect. I have good friends. My health is very good. So I'm enjoying that kind of life. Because of what? You have a good health. Why? Why some other people don't have a good health? You have a good health because your actions in the past were healthy. So today you are enjoying good health. You are eating good food. Why? Because your actions in the past were healthy. And so on. So I understand. And I rather like this. I like to have enough money, to have, pleasurable, comfortable life. I like that. Through that, I am burning my good karma. I am getting rid of my good karma. And then slowly, I am approaching the higher evolutionary stages. But how am I to express bad karma? Your hands need to be chopped. Who is the volunteer to cut the hand? Nobody likes. Even if you know that in your future you must undergo some traumatic experience, you will be very unhappy about it. And you are going to try to avoid somehow. because that's our nature, that's our instinct. So normally people voluntarily are not going to go for the painful experiences. So that's why the nature has created a special mechanism in us that allows us to experience the bad samskaras. That is called indirect will. Indirect will. Some things we do, it is a direct will. I want it, I go for it. And some other things I do, I don't consciously, I don't want it. But unconsciously, my unconscious mind knows it knows where I can experience the consequences of my bad actions. For example, the girl goes shopping. There will be 20 shops, and she will come to one shop, and in that shop somebody will abuse her verbally. This is a story from life, actually. She said, there was not a girl, rather a lady, a little bit already like grandmother. She said, my grandson was born and I became so much fascinated with the children's toys and their clothes and everything. So I saw a very nice jacket for my grandson. So I became fascinated, I became drawn to it. I came and I started to, and then the shopkeeper, she was a bit out of balance, and she said, "What a foolish people! They come here, don't you see that I'm still not open?" And she just blasted like that. And that lady with the grandson, she felt very hurt. She felt very, as if something pierced her, painful. Then she told me this story. I said, "And what did you do?" She said, "I blasted her. I spoke my mind. I told her whatever I think about her, and 2 times, 3 times more." So that's the mechanism. Out of 20 shops, you're not going to go to any shop where people are going to talk to you nicely. You're going to go to that shop where people are going to abuse you. Because your unconscious mind is choosing, is attracting you there. Sometimes you already have a premonition. Like, I feel that, if I'm going there, I'm going to get sick. I already have the premonition in my mind. Because the samskara is already vibrating on the Atimanas Kosha, Vigyana Maya Kosha, Atimanas Kosha. On the higher planes of my mind, already the vibration is there. The seed starts sprouting. So I have some kind of premonition, this is going to happen. But I cannot do anything about it. I just go and I go through it. And then what this lady supposed to do actually? Because now what she did is, in Buddhism they call it wheel of samsara. You are doing something, you are creating the samskara, and then for that samskara you will have to do something else again in the future. And again will create another reaction. So action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction, it never ends. So how to stop that? You have to be aware and you have to become rational. So at that moment, if she would not give in to her emotions, if she would control her anger and would analyze, maybe this lady, maybe something happened to her, maybe there is some trouble in her family, or maybe there is something with her health or hormones or something. That's why she behaved like this. She didn't mean ill towards me. It's just I feel compassion towards her. I will not shout in response. I will not try to hurt her because she hurt me. So at that moment, you burned, you expressed, you finished your bad samskara, and you have not created a new samskara. But how many times in our life we can do that? Normally we get irritated and we become reactive. There is a reaction. We are not thinking, how should I do? What should I do? What should be proper? At the same time, it is not good also. If somebody is attacking you and you are not responding, is also not good, because if the evil goes unpunished, then it grows. So what she had to do, she had to first calm down, and then she has to do some action, take some action, out of duty, not out of reaction. She would say that, you know, that when you said like this, I felt bad. So this lady should get in the shop, the shopkeeper should get the feedback, but not with anger. So in this way, you break the karmic sequence and you break free from that. That's very interesting. So there is this indirect will. That indirect will brings us into the circumstances. I break my leg, I get abused verbally, I get into some clash, I may be sometimes killed, or I get sick. So all those things that we are going through, it is the reaping the consequences of our past. And it is a good thing. Now, in yoga, in meditation, we are concerned with the cosmic bliss. We don't have a goal to live a nice life. That's not our goal. Because once you have a nice life, then you wonder, then so what? Okay, I have a good food, then so what? So what? It's not the actual desire of a human being. We want something deeper, something sweeter. We want to attain the divine bliss. So what is that divine bliss? It's radically different from pain and pleasure. Pleasure depends on three things. One, it depends on the sensory organs. For example, I like sweet. So I put one piece of sugar in my tea. Okay, that sweetness depends on my tongue. First of all, it depends on the external object. There has to be sugar to be enjoyed. Then secondly, it depends on the tongue. So if I don't have sugar, I'm not going to enjoy. Or if I don't have tongue, I'm also not going to enjoy it. And also, let's say I eat something for the first time. Wow, what wonderful. I eat for the second time. Okay. And the third time, normal. So my sensory organs, they become used to it. And there is not anymore that kick. There is not anymore that, oh, wow, that's really fantastic. It's not anymore there. So every time, to get to that feeling, I need to up the stakes. I need to up the experience. It has to become more intense, more sweet, more elaborate, the more profound. Then I'm going to enjoy. So that's one thing with the pleasure. First, there has to be object of pleasure. And secondly, my sensory organs, they become dulled by the experience, by the sensual experiences. And then the third thing is that to enjoy something, I must have samskara for that. If you don't have samskara, you're not going to enjoy. There are some people who like olives. There are some people who hate olives. There are some people who like milk. There are some people who hate milk. They don't like milk. But the tongue is the same. The milk is the same. Why I am not enjoying? Because in the mind, there is not that distortion in the mind that allows you to enjoy it. I have married a woman. For example, And I believe that, wow, at the moment, I enjoy her so much that I feel that for 100 years we will be together. But then 1 year passed and I'm thinking, how on earth, why did we become together? This happens. And now the divorce rate is, some countries it's like 70%. People come together, oh, let's be together. Especially the movies, everything what we see is about immature relationship. Oh, I love you so much, I cannot stay without you. That kind of attachment, that it is an attachment to pleasure actually. It is an attachment to pleasure. It's not about love. Love is something different. So that attachment, that enjoyment, that feeling that I enjoy this person, I like to be around that person, comes due to a set of samskaras that enables your mind. Your mind becomes like, there is this, the key, you put the key in the door and you open the door. So similarly, we put each other into our own minds, and when we fit. But as we live, I change, the person change, and there is not anymore that fitting. We are not coinciding, we are not fitting together, and then people go different ways. They could stay, they could have stayed, and if they are motivated by the higher beliefs, if they are motivated by the higher ideals, we are going to stay together to promote the spiritual growth, the intellectual development, and the material well-being of each other. Instead of getting, I'm going to give. And when both trying to give, they're both enjoying. There is a good family. But normally people like to get. And then I'm trying to get, but I am not. It becomes tasteless for me. I'm not enjoying it anymore. So we have to understand the mechanics. So that's the pleasure. That's why pleasure is extremely short-lived. It is extremely short-lived. It depends on the object. The object may be there, may not be there. It depends on the sensory organs. They are becoming dull due to when I experience something, every time I experience, the more dull is the experience. And then they depend on samskara. When samskara is over, I don't enjoy anymore. I think it happened to you. I used to like sweet so much, sweet things. But when I became 40 years old, I just lost. I don't like. It's okay. It's okay. But it's not like I used to really feel like, oh, I like. But I don't like now. It's okay. I'd rather eat something different, something salty. So why? The samskaras changed. My inner mind has changed. Now I'm not satisfied with what I was satisfied before. Bliss, in other hand, the bliss is something different. Bliss doesn't depend on the object, does not depend on the sensory organs because it is internal, and does not depend on samskara. Bliss comes from you come in touch with Supreme Consciousness. And what is Supreme Consciousness? Is your innermost I. Your innermost, something which is even deeper than your I feeling. The center of yourself. So, therefore, it is always there. Without that, you cannot exist. It is always there. And then, as it is internal, the sensory organ has nothing to do with that. And then, it does not depend on samskara. It depends on the absence of samskara. Imagine the lake, like a river, for example. And then there is a moon. And you see the moon in the lake. And if the lake is just like a glass, calm, you see the complete reflection of the moon. And if the lake is windy and stormy, you see the broken pieces of the moon. Cannot see, cannot have the whole picture. Similarly, the mind and consciousness. When the Supreme Consciousness reflects from the mind, when the mind is peaceful and calm, you see that image in the mind. Metaphorically speaking, it means when you are very, very calm, you just feel there is a divine feeling. You are grasping, you are catching something which is above you. And you are enjoying that feeling which you call bliss. So peace and bliss, they are together. If you are in peace, you are in bliss also. If the mind has become so straight and so calm, you are going to enjoy the bliss. But many people, they don't agree. They say, no. Like there is one song. It is in Russian. And they say, the eternal peace will not make anyone happy. The eternal peace is only for the pyramids, is only for, some static structures. But for the star, which is, falling down from the sky, there is only 1 second. And that's second of pure brilliance. Something like that song. So, eternal peace. Who wants eternal peace? Because people don't understand what peace is. They think that peace, that you are sitting in a room and you cannot express yourself and you are in peace. Of course it is hell. It is not what we want. At that situation that we imagine our restless mind put in the situation where the mind cannot express the restlessness. For the mind to become peaceful, I need some objects. For example, I want ice cream. Why do I want ice cream? Do I want ice cream for the sake of ice cream? Or why? No. Because until I eat the ice cream, I cannot be in peace. Actually, I want peace. But until I eat the ice cream, I cannot be in peace. So there is this restlessness in my mind. There is restlessness in my mind. That restlessness is samskara. So how to remove that restlessness? To experience something of pleasurable nature or something of painful nature, depending on the samskara, which is agitating my mind. And when I have experienced, I have temporarily attained a sort of peace. And that is what is called happiness. There is pleasure and there is satisfaction. There is a big difference between the two. Pleasure is one thing, but satisfaction, to be satisfied, is different. Satu bhavati daridra jasyasha vishala manasi cha paritushte korthavan kudaridra. Thus, the person whose desires are limitless becomes a poor person. But the one who is mentally satisfied, who is rich and who is poor? The richness is the feeling of peace. When you are in the state of peace, what do you need more for the complete peace? I need nothing. I am in peace. I am completely satisfied. I am happy. So the true nature of happiness is the state of satisfaction, where you need nothing else. Nothing else is needed. And you can be there. You can be there. That's happiness. If you can stay in the closed rooms for 1 year without no problem, it means you are in peace. That's what the mystics did. They sat on meditation, they closed their eyes, no desire to move. Because there is any dissatisfaction in the mind. Why do we need to move? We need to move only to satisfy ourselves. But if I'm already satisfied, why do I need to move? I can be there in blissful state. So that's another big question then people will ask then, Then how's about service? And yes, some actions I do because I want, and some action I do because it is my spiritual duty. That is in another portion of this lecture I'm going to explain. But so far we have understood how the samskara is created. Every time I do the action, I carve it in my own mind, and my mind bears the distortions which are created by the original actions. And those distortions, to be removed, for that I need to experience opposite and equal reactions. Actually not opposite and not equal. We are living in the expanding universe. The time and space is expanding, so is our mind is expanding. And the reactions are also expanding. So if you wait, the consequences of your action become actually bigger than the action itself. So it's like, wow, very hopeless situation. It is very hopeless situation that I have borrowed $1 million from the bank, and now it has become 2 million, and tomorrow it will become 3 million. What to do? What to do in this situation? So we have to figure out what to do. And in the next lecture, in the next class, I'm going to explain how to burn, how to destroy that samskara which is already there, how to remove it, how to finish it off. And also I will explain how to live in such a way that no new samskara is created. And that is the fundamental understanding to move from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, from unhappiness to happiness, from darkness to light. Because when we become calm, we become complete. When we become satisfied, we become the reflection of the Supreme Consciousness. Yeah. There are two choices. One choice is to let nature take care. Through direct will and through indirect will, you're expressing your karma. But then the problem is that as you express one karma, you create new karma. And normally you make more mess than originally was there. You're trying to fix the problem, but actually you're making it worse. And another way is through the spiritual practice. We have to figure out how to reap all the consequences, how to express all the karma, how to remove the consequences of the past actions. And we have to figure out how not to create new karma. So you can write in the comments if you had any stories about indirect will, that how your mind unconsciously brought you in the situation and you saw it. It will be very interesting to read. And it is very nice to read your comments. I'm trying to reply every comment you leave, at least after like first days when the video is released. I am answering all the comments. Yeah, and then I'm going to record another video on this topic. Yeah, thank you very much. Namaskar.